Back here on this new month, going to be doing this the first Thursday and Friday of every month, our monthly checkup with some of our local doctors. This morning, we have Sarah Collins-McGowan, pediatrician at Golisano's here. And the topic we have, and I'm glad you're coming in to talk about this, is the time of year, particularly when we're dealing with vaccines. And this is, we'll get into RSV, flu, COVID, everything that people need to know. We like to keep these conversations kind of basic and go through the FAQ for everyone. Whenever someone's considering getting the flu or the COVID vaccine, and they're asking, what exactly does it do? How exactly does it work? How do you try to explain it to a patient at a basic level?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on today. I'm glad we're going to have this conversation. I think the easiest way to think about the way vaccines work is that they're basically like a software update for your immune system. So it's allowing your immune system to identify any potential threats, viruses or bacteria that might make you sick, and then have the right tools to be able to fend those off. So, just the way Apple puts out their critical iOS updates and you got to put those on your phone and you know that you can detect any potential vulnerabilities. That's essentially how vaccines work for our immune system.
Have we always had this many vaccines available? I mean, how far back does this go? I know we've added COVID and the boosters in recent years, and now they're working on different combination ones eventually in the future. But people look around and they may see their chart and remember what they had as kids. It's always been about this many.
Yeah, so we definitely have more vaccines now. Right now in the standard immunization schedule, there's about 20 or more vaccines that we use to protect kids and adults against different kinds of diseases. And the reason that there are more now is essentially that we can now protect against more diseases than we used to be able to. So, most of these used to be very common, very, serious or even deadly, especially to children. And nowadays, your pediatrician, your family practitioner probably has never seen a case of polio or, seen a case of diphtheria. And that's because very few people in this country have had those illnesses at all over the past few decades because vaccines have been effective. So, the reason that we really want to protect kids and really everybody with these is so that they can stay healthier. So the more illnesses we can protect them against, the better off they are.
There's been a lot of change for different reasons and what we've seen in different headlines, but I'm a parent. I have a almost 3-year-old, almost 6-year-old at home. What are you telling parents with kids kind of in that group about what they should be doing for COVID or a flu shot as we're getting into the heart of winter here?
Yeah, it's certainly coming. I'm a parent also, so thinking about these same questions and deciding about, getting vaccines for my kids. I have gotten them both flu and COVID so far for this year, and I definitely, recommend that to all my patients. Again, I think, the important thing to remember is that with both flu and COVID, they provide some protection. They particularly provide protection against really serious complications of the illness. They might not protect you against getting it at all, but they'll protect against really serious complications. And so that's what we're after with these. And so it's better to have the vaccine on board to make sure your kids are protected. And that's also going to help protect, other people around you, any vulnerable family members that you might have who may be more likely to have more complications from either of those illnesses or may not be able to get the vaccine for various reasons as well. So it's going to help really protect, your whole family, your whole community that way.
Is COVID coming around to being more of a seasonal cycle like what we have with the flu whenever we're talking from like October to March? This is when we say go get your flu shot. Or is COVID still really, you have it year round?
Yeah, that's a great question. It seems like it's with us year round. We definitely see times when it kind of peaks and when it ebbs a little bit. So the late summer, early fall was a time when it was peaking for us. It's backing off just a little bit now. So it doesn't seem to follow the exact same kind of seasonal pattern that something like flu or RSV does. And it seems to be with us a little more, throughout the year. But there are certainly times where we see it increase and then decrease again a little bit.
Maybe this is just my understanding from reading, and you can correct me when I'm wrong, but with flu shots, they look at different hemispheres to try to predict for the strain that we would have here. Is that the same that they try to do with COVID with whatever variant or a different strain that's going around?
Essentially, yeah. So you're exactly right. With flu vaccine, the flu essentially travels around the globe continuously. And so if it's not flu season here, it's flu season in the southern hemisphere. And so there are scientists, at locations all over the world that are monitoring exactly what's happening with the flu virus, which strains are making people sick. And then the World Health Organization is making recommendations based on that for what should be included in each hemisphere's, seasonal flu vaccine. And more or less the same thing is happening with COVID, where that's constantly being monitored. I think people probably remember early on in COVID, the virus was changing a lot and pretty frequently, and we were hearing all these different types, these different names that were coming out. It's settled a little bit, but there are still small changes that are happening, and so that's kind of constantly being monitored, around the world by scientists to see, is this vaccine still going to be, an appropriate response for protection against COVID, or does it need to change at all for, this next year?
Whenever people read about this, different families, and they hear the word antigen and they think about my child, about how much they can be exposed to, how do you explain that?
Yeah, I think so. Antigen is a word that gets thrown around a lot lately. And so I think it's important to just, define it. And so if you put it really simply, an antigen is something that is outside the body. So something that the body recognizes as foreign and that induces an immune response. And that's how vaccines work. All vaccines contain antigens. It prompts the immune system to recognize something that is foreign, that is a threat, and induce an immune response. And there are lots of different types of antigens. So we have different vaccines that use different types of antigens. So for example, one is a killed or inactivated virus, where the virus has been killed, it's dead, it can't cause any illness. But the immune system can still recognize it and it can still mount a response. So like our current polio vaccine is a good example of something like that. And then we also have vaccines that have weakened live virus. And so this is a virus that has been weakened. It can't cause illness, but it's not completely inactivated. And it can prompt sometimes a stronger immune response, and that can be important for certain types of illness. So the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine is a good example of that. And then we have vaccines that look at parts of viruses or parts of bacteria. They don't need the whole thing. They just need to be able to recognize a part of it. That's what they're going to respond to. And so those are all different kinds of antigens that we find in vaccines. And I think parents often wonder, like, how much is too much?
Yeah.
Is there a certain number of antigens that's too many for, a baby or a child's system to overload? And so I think to put it into perspective, a baby or a toddler or a young child is coming into contact with something like 2,000 to 6,000 antigens on a daily basis just in their environment. So the stuff that they're touching and putting in their mouths and putting their hands in their mouths and all of that, their immune system is constantly dealing with antigens and processing them. And so, by comparison, what's in the vaccines is a tiny amount compared to that. So there really is no, concern or risk at all that you're going to overload the immune system in some way. Our immune systems can handle it. Even babies' immune systems can handle, that much antigen.
Oh, I think about it every time we go to the grocery store, any museum, they touch something, or go back to school after a weekend. And I'm like, okay, next couple of days, something, they may have some sniffles. Kind of on that, is it different for kids or adults of getting, COVID and flu shots at the same time? Do you tell people to space it out, or does it make much of a difference?
It doesn't make much of a difference. It's totally safe to do them together. Some people prefer that, and if they do, that's fine. Some people prefer to space it out, especially if you're somebody who has a little more side effects with one or the other of them. Lots of people have a little more side effects with the COVID vaccines. And so if that's something that you'd rather separate out and, do them at two separate times, that's okay too. I have one kid who opted to do them together and one kid who opted to do them separately. So that's totally your choice.
Listen, whenever I got two at the same time, the next day, I have no problem getting the vaccines, but I always have some side effect. I had a bad headache this time, and I do drink water. That's one of the things to say. Drink water, don't sleep on that arm. But my coworker, James, he, may space it out or do it differently, consider that. If someone doesn't have a side effect from after seeing a shot, they don't need to have any question of if he's having more of a response and a headache, or he's feeling lethargic, it might be working better for him versus for me.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And no, they are tested thoroughly in terms of effectiveness and looking at the immune response afterwards. So some people do have some more side effects, some people don't, but you can be confident that it's working, for both of you.
And finally, before we get you out of here, where do you tell people to get the best information when they're considering vaccines, looking at what's in them, side effects, timeline, things like that?
Yeah. I think, right now parents are getting just sort of bombarded with information and a lot of unsupported claims. And I think it can be really difficult to sort through all of that and figure out, what sources can I trust? Where's the good information going to be that I can really make decisions? Because they want their kids to be healthy. And, we all want their kids to be healthy. That's really the goal. There's been some erosion of trust in some of the government organizations that we normally would have pointed people towards and trusted as well. And so at this point right now, I really recommend people look at the AAP, which is the American Academy of Pediatrics. They are a national organization here in this country, whose mission is to promote the health of children. And so they have some really, really great information on their website, their home website, as well as their healthychildren.org website that's got answers to pretty much anything you could ask about vaccines, what's in them, the schedule, all of that kind of stuff that's there. And they also have, if you like to get your information from, social media, they also have on their website some resources of people that you can trust on social media so that you can follow them and kind of make sure that you're getting good information from real experts and not people who are just claiming to be experts. And then the other thing I really encourage anybody to do is to talk with their pediatrician, talk with their family practitioner. Ask these questions. If you're worried about things, ask them. We're all here. We have lots of education in this. We can stay up on these things. We're here to be experts and to help, parents make decisions and get good information. We're not selling supplements or building brands or, doing paid advertisements. And so I think when you're sorting through the noise, thinking about, what the motivation is behind the information that you're getting, is good. And so I just encourage people to always, go back to that in person, go back to the people that they trust, that they've trusted to take care of their kids, for years, and get your questions answered and feel confident about, giving your kids the vaccines that they should get to protect them.
And we will have it and have a happy and healthy holiday season coming up. That's our monthly checkup for November with Dr. Sarah Collins-McGowan, pediatrician at Golisano. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.